All right, can everyone hear me? Welcome everyone. We're going to try to get started here. Just want to go over some housekeeping. First off, I'm Scott Schaefer, founder of the B-Town blog. Thank you all for coming. Great turnout. Really appreciate all your civic community interest. Democracy in action right here. So welcome to our 2013 Candidates Forum. I believe this is our, fourth year? Where's Mark? Mark Newman.
I'd say fourth. Yeah.
Fourth year of doing these. And it should be a lively night, but we do have some rules. I will introduce our moderator, who will then introduce our panel and our candidates. First, I want to go over a little thing that we call the purple card option. Now, every candidate has a purple 3x5 index card. Somebody hold that up. There you go. Joey, who's wearing a purple shirt, has the purple card. So what are these cards, you're wondering? Well, during the forums, once all 6 candidates have finished answering a question, any candidate can hold up a purple card to challenge, and they're given 20 seconds to add or follow up on their own question, or their own answer, or another candidate's answer. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, they could recite the Pledge of Allegiance if they want. They can do
Okay.
whatever they want with it.
So each candidate can use their purple card twice during the entire evening. So it is limited. So keep that in mind. You want to save it for a good moment. Now, the purple card does not apply to the opening statement or closing statements. And after the opening statements, we will go to the audience. That's you for questions.
No, to the panelists.
Yeah.
What's that?
To the panelists.
Oh, maybe you should be up here talking, Mark. I'm reading Mark's script. He wrote every word out.
Here, by the way.
Anyway, so when we get to the audience questions, you will be given this microphone, and Teresa here, I guess, will be holding the mic. She will bring it up to you, and you will speak into it. You'll hold it up close to your mouth like this, and you will speak, and you will ask a question. So a lot of you may have issues or comments. We would prefer that you just get right to a question, please. Think of it as Jeopardy. Put it in the form of a question. And if your topic has already been covered, please ask a different question about a new and different topic. Let's see. Anything else, Mark?
Ready to go.
Okay, and now I would like to introduce our moderator, Joe Breitenbach, also known as DUI Joe. He's a local attorney, and you can also hear him. He does a talk show on our internet radio station, So King Internet Radio. Take it away, Joe.
Good evening. Unlike Scott, who's been through this 4 times before, this is my first effort at this. So if you think he's nervous and he makes mistakes, well, you can figure that I'll probably make 4 times as many as he does, but I'm gonna do the best I can. In any event, I'd like to start off with introducing our panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Arun Javari. Thank you. Arun was the first mayor of the city of Burien, serving in that office for over 5 years. He's an author, a physicist, and a mechanical engineer. He earned his doctorates in educational leadership from Seattle University, and early on worked for Boeing on the development of the 727, 737, and 747. Those of you that don't remember, those are airplanes. He's a recipient of the 2012 Association of Energy Engineers Regional Renewable Energy Innovator Award. Yeah, that was a tough one. All right, Arun keeps in shape by swimming almost every day. Jack Main, to my far left, has been a daily and weekly newspaper editor for 4 decades, spending the last 4 years as a contributor to various newspapers and the new blogs, including the B-Town blog and the Waterland blog. He's the former bureau chief for the Associated Press. He's also a city editor at the Seattle Post-Intelligencer and the Arizona Republic newspaper in Phoenix. Jack once interviewed Nelson Mandela in person. He remembers that day darn well, and he can also remember how to use a typewriter and what it is actually. Jack keeps his shape by not swimming almost every day. Okay, then I'd like to introduce the candidates. Just by name only, they'll get a chance to talk lots tonight. Lauren Berkowitz. Jack Block. Kip Walton is also a candidate, but he declined to participate tonight. Those candidates are for the council position number 1. Candidates for council position number 7 is Joey Martinez and Chuck Rangel. Rangel. Oh, it's spelled right. And Steve Armstrong is also a contender in this race, and he was not able to appear here tonight.
But he'll be here next week.
The crowd is getting unruly. Okay, at this time, I would ask the candidates for their opening statements. We'll start with Lauren Berkowitz. Lauren Berkowitz. Whatever. We'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Lauren Berkowitz. I'm obviously running for Berrien City Council Position 1. I am a longtime union organizer. I worked with the Federation of State Employees for several years, and before that with UFCW 21. So I believe that I have the passion and the experience to actually get our community back involved in the council, and I'm running to do so. I am now currently a University of Washington law student. I'm studying public interest labor law, so you can tell my interest lies in having family wage and union wage jobs for everybody in our community. But I can also tell you that out walking and talking to my neighbors, the community really needs basic services, things like sidewalks, police presence, and animal safety. So we are trying to get together and get the community together to get to the basic needs that it needs. I again believe that my experience as an organizer will help me build coalitions and bring the community together to accomplish these goals in a way that hasn't been done at this point. Also, I began my experience in Berrien 11 years ago as an AmeriCorps volunteer at the school down the street from where I now live, which is Mount View Elementary. I also volunteered at Cedarhurst Elementary, and during those times, as well as the years between those times, I have been working actively with the Berrien community and residents, and I know the passion that we have. I know the desire that we have to make the city as wonderful as it can be, and again, I know how to do that and make it come together. So thank you very much, and I look forward to getting your vote and representing you this fall.
Next, I'd like to introduce Jack Block. Mr. Block, you have 90 seconds. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Barnbach. My name is Jack Block Jr. I'm running for re-election for Berrien City Council Position 6. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens of Berrien for over 2 terms, and I look forward to serving again for a 3rd term. Berrien faces several challenges. As we all know, we have a serious issue with empty storefronts in our downtown. We need to reinvigorate our business community. This will allow us to generate the revenue that we need to provide the services that our citizens want, such as police and better roads and sidewalks. Our schools have a serious problem. We need to bring our community together and make our schools a major focus for all our citizens. Not only does it affect our ability to grow as a community, but it also affects our future, because we need to address the fact that our children are going to school not prepared, and that Berrien and the Highland School District has the lowest high school graduation rate in King County. So it's important to have that focus in place so that we can bring the entire community together, make it a major focus, and say to all of our students and all our community, we will not let you fail. That was 90 seconds, buddy? Oh. Okay. Well, anyway, Berrien's been driven off the rails, and it's time to put Berrien back on track.
Next on deck is Joey Martinez.
Hi, thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Joey Martinez, and I'm running for Berrien City Council, seat 7. One of the reasons I'm running is because I've got 2 boys, ages 13 and 8, and I feel as a city we can engage our youth more. Point in fact, part of the reason is because if you drive by the library, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. You see kids there hanging out, some of them are getting in trouble, makes all of our kids look bad, but doesn't have to be so. Working with you, I want to build a better Berrien. The way I want to do that is by partnering with you and finding ways to get them engaged in the community. Excuse me. Part of the things I want to do is a public-private partnership with either the YMCA or the Boys Club, get our kids engaged in our community, get them active, get them civic pride. Another reason I am running is because, I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of Berrien's image in the news. Whenever you hear about Berrien in the news, King 5, Como, whatever, it's always some apartment fire or some shooting or some other police activity, and that is not the real Berrien. Real Berrien is a great place to live, great place to raise your family, just like my wife and myself. And I have a lot of passion for that, and I want to get back to that because the real Berrien, I love it, and it's a great place to live. I want to work with you to build that better Berrien by getting those issues off, get us off the evening news for the bad stuff. Over time, we'll be in the news for the good stuff, and we will build that better Berrien together. My name is Joey Martinez, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we have Chuck Rangel.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Chuck Rangel, and I'm running for the City Council position number 7. I believe that the people of any city have a voice, and that voice should be heard by that government. I would work, all of the groups that I've worked with, it was the most important thing were the voices and the ideas of the membership. That's how we decided what we were going to do, when we were going to do it, because it was the members that made it work. We utilized the best skills of everyone in that group. So too with a city. The city should seek to hear the ideas of all of its citizens. All you people out there, you've got some fantastic ideas. Don't ignore them. Listen to them. It is also that their city, every one of you who volunteer or have volunteered, it's your city that you're working for, not only the city council members. I have lived through several changes in Berrien's downtown core, and I believe that I can help devise a family-friendly and business-successful core with a change in city policies. For too long, the city has not provided the right environment of a tax structure, a policy, and a strategy for a successful business and for incoming businesses. There must be improved transparency in all city matters, and this is utmost important. We have to have the citizens know what is going on behind those doors. If elected, I will encourage the council to move to a business-friendly, family-friendly community and make sure that all of your voices are heard and all of your questions are answered. Thank you.
We'll start with our first questions for the candidates from Maroon, and we'll start with the first answer from Mr. Block.
The city of Berrien celebrated 20 years of cityhood earlier this year. 20 years is a long time, and it's the visioning process that the first city council adopted in order to move for 20 years. So my question to you is, what is your vision and what are your priorities for the next 20 years in terms of policy guidance to the city manager and his staff or her staff?
Well, 20 years is a long time, and I think it's time to revisit that vision and decide where we're going to go for the next 20 years. We've worked hard to build a great community, and it's important that we engage the citizens to get that vision in place that will allow us to expand and grow and prosper as a community. Our vision that was in place 20 years ago has totally changed. We need to address the changes that have taken place. Look at our governance structure. Do we want to maintain our current form of government with a city manager, council form of government, or do we want to give the people a choice, a vote on who leads their city and go with an elected mayor? Those are the issues that I think that we need to bring forward as we approach the next 20 years of our cityhood. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, you have 90 seconds to address the same question.
Thank you very much. So over the last 20 years, Burien's come a long way as a city. Over the next 20 years, I hope to set policy to guide us in the right direction. Some of the stuff I've already been doing on the Planning Commission has been just looking out over the North Burien stuff, as well as all of the recent updates. That's really taught me what it takes to really run a city. Planning Commissioner, some of them call it the kindergarten council, because so many have come from there. It really gives you good practice on what's going on with the city. So some of the stuff I want to work on with you is, first of all, public safety, I believe, is the city's #1 priority. So I'd love to incorporate that into the visioning statement. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's in there somewhere. So some of the stuff I want to work on is we have a safe city overall, but we've got an image problem. And that image problem is what's really hurting Burien. So working with you, I definitely want to clean that up. Some of the other stuff I want to work on in the visioning process is figure out what we're doing with our ever-expanding minority population. I am a native Spanish speaker, and it's my first language actually, and working with that community that has not really been involved in Burien is definitely important to me as well. Latinos were not coming around. I'm not sure why. I'm out in the neighborhoods talking to people, and we need to get that voice incorporated in our overall path. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel?
Thank
You
you.
have 90 seconds.
Okay, for the past 37 years, this Latino has been working in the Burien City community, with or without a city. I was putting up the Christmas decorations 25, 30 years ago. Some of you may remember on First Avenue and 152nd. I was a Mexican. We got involved with it. No big deal. There's been a lot of Latinos who've been involved. It's not an issue. What is an issue is what we're going to do. And what we need now is a vision for Burien for the next 20 years. Burien I came from 37 years ago was a great community. I loved it. And I still love it. And I still believe Burien can be that fantastic neighborhood city with an outstanding community business core. And that's what I plan on working on, is getting that business core back to where it was when we had Le Mans, when we had Ernst, when we had all those stores, and now they're gone. Why? We can make some tax policy changes. We could make some structural changes in the way the city does business and not be so hard and demanding on some of the businesses who want to actually come to Burien, like Home Depot wanted to come. And all of those demands made, Home Depot said, too much, we're gone. Home Depot would have been an outstanding business to have. I only have 5 seconds. Thank you.
Ms. Berkowitz?
I agree that Burien has been a wonderful place to live and been in and out of the community for 11 years. And I think that the community needs to become more vibrant. And the vision that I see for Burien is full of a family-friendly city. So everything from sidewalks and bike paths and safe ways for our kids to get to schools. One really big improvement is 11 years ago when I was working at Mount View Elementary, it was entirely in portable buildings because of the earthquake. And when I was at Cedarhurst, it was a very different looking building than it is now. In fact, I couldn't even believe it when I saw it the other day. So Burien has definitely improved and it is definitely growing, but there's still lots of room to grow further. As well, the developing area in the downtown surely does not have enough stores, but we want to make sure that we don't just fill them with any stores. We fill them with the kinds of stores that help Burien grow, not just willy-nilly, but in a way that actually works for Burien's families and children and residents. So I actually think it's very important to make sure that there are safeguards on the businesses that come in and that we get the kinds of businesses that can work with families to help a spiral up situation in Burien. So we can get positive businesses, positive sidewalks that'll raise our home values, it'll raise the quality of living, it'll make less need for police protection when cities are more livable, but also be able to afford better protection by the police. It'll be a safer and happier and more vibrant community for everybody and all the members of Burien. Thank you.
Mr. Jack Main will have the next question for our candidates.
As you probably all know, the city council voted to extend and increase the CARES contract this week. How would each of you have handled that matter? What is the future for CARES in your time on the city council?
Mr. Martinez,
Martinez.
you get the answer first.
Thank you. So CARES is obviously a very touchy issue. Some people just don't like it no matter what they're gonna do. For me, it's really about the dollars. We really can't afford King County Animal Control, Regional Animal Control actually. It's a different organization. I used to love King County Animal Control. It is now Regional RASP, whatever. But, so the difference between those two organizations is one is more volunteer driven. And even at that point, we can't afford it. We're basically paying $120,000 now, plus license fees with the new contract change. And until the economy improves, I would keep CARES. Another 2 years, $50,000, I think it's a good organization, saving Burien money over $200,000 a year plus license fees, which are more expensive with King County Animal Control. So to be on the record, CARES would have gotten my vote yesterday. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel.
Okay, CARES, I think I'm the only one up here who's written any documents or publications on animal control in Washington State. I did that in 1979 for the Municipal Research Center of Washington. There's a lot of issues that go into animal control, and just saying what, this dog care, that cats, dogs, whatever. We have to look at what really goes on in that organization, and I really can't tell you what goes on because there's not enough information coming out of that organization or from the city council to tell me as a citizen, what is that money really spent on? Again, we need to find out, biggest issue. Joey's a little bit right there. We've got to find out if it's financially feasible. I've got a lot of background in finances. I will look at those books. And this is something that the city manager could do. It is very important to know what really is the bottom line dollar that we're going to get for each of the services that you are paying for. Thank you.
Ms. Berkowitz, same question.
Thanks. I see animal control and CARES as a question of two different things. First of all, it's contracting out of city work, so it's labor issues. And second of all, it's actually about safety, safety for animals and safety for humans. As some of you know, in the middle of March, I was walking down the street with both my dogs on a leash, as is the law, and an off-leash dog came running out and attacked my dogs viciously. One of them almost died. So since then, I've been hearing from many other people who've had similar experiences, some with children, human children. And I think it's a real problem, and when I'm knocking on doors, I can tell you that the rest of the city thinks it's a real problem. There really isn't enough information. Everybody has an opinion on CARES, everybody has questions on CARES, but nobody can really explain the facts behind it. So the reason that I'm endorsed by the Washington Alliance for Humane Legislation is because I propose to create a task force to address these issues, to research what's really happening, what's happening in the community, what's happening behind the scenes with the numbers, and then make educated decisions on education and on whether or not we use CARES or incorporate CARES back into the city. I generally am opposed to contracting out of services, especially eroding the civil service public laws that we have in Washington State. I think that's a big problem. It affects all city and state workers. I think that contracting out a small section like animal control actually contributes to a bigger picture of contracting out of public sector work. So I do not support the extension of the CARES contract. Thank you.
Mr. Block.
Well, I voted against the extension of the contract last night. I think it's an inappropriate expenditure of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars. When the contract originally came up, we were faced with a serious question as to cost. Would we spend $360,000 a year on animal control? I felt that was totally inappropriate. It would have meant taking a police officer off the street or gutting our human services budget, which is $200,000. You know, I love animals, I love my pets, I have 2 dogs, but I think that our main priority is for our 2-legged citizens. And I think that taking that money away from serving our human residents is totally inappropriate. My vision for animal control was to have, like many other cities have, a professional animal control officer, professionalize the service, instead of having what we have now, which is well-meaning amateurs attempting to provide services protecting the public and our pets. As Ms. Berkowitz related, we have serious shortcomings with the service that is provided. And then on top of that, at last night's council meeting, there was a request for an extension and another $50,000 in funding on top of that for a program that, quite frankly, should be covering its own costs. So my time's up. Thank you.
Mr. Javari, that's a question for you candidates.
Okay. Generally, the candidates, when they run for any offices, including the City of Burien offices, tend to be a one-issue candidate. So my question is, the city is a form of government, local government, has three major considerations: economic prosperity, environmental stewardship, and community development. So my question is, how are you going to balance these three issues from a policy standpoint so that you are looking at an overall picture and not just talking about one or two issues? Because as you know, the city council has to deal with so many different issues.
Mr. Rangel.
Okay. Thank you for that very long answer it's going to be, because all three of those are very, very important. I would add one other to that. The most singular important issue that this city has to do with is their citizens' safety. Public safety, period, end of story, is number one. Now, I will agree with Arun very, very much in the environmental stewardship. How do we do what we're going to do as a city that will not harm the city, the great resources that we have? And some of those issues have been talked about, such as the stormwater runoff, the Eagle's Nest issue of the runoff going down there. There's many issues that the city will be dealing with. How am I going to deal with those? With technical knowledge. I think, and this is what's been lacking, I think, in some of the city council members, you have to be able to understand what is being put before you. You don't have to have the knowledge, but you have to have the ability to understand what they're saying when an expert comes in and talks about stormwater runoff or talks about economic development and how the impact of all the capital that's out there is 10 seconds. Is three issues that I believe one of those alone lasts for 90 seconds to each of us. Thank you very much.
Ms. Berkowitz, you're up.
I actually get really excited by this question because I think that all three relate perfectly well together and go hand in hand with my vision of a vibrant city. If you encourage and increase the environmental sustainability of the city, you need to do so by reducing car runoff into the Puget Sound, which you do by having sidewalks, which then increases the safety and the ability for kids to get safely to work. I think the key in just that one example is finding a long-term vision and then following that vision with balance to make sure that you're guiding and following that vision, and then all three of those things will develop. Again, if we support family wage businesses, then you will see an economic increase within the city, and then you will see more money going to things like sidewalks and bike paths, and more money going to police presence, and all of these different things, as well as increasing our schools. So again, I feel like they all work very well together, and the way that I would balance them is by having a 20-year vision and following it, and making sure that the community is involved with this vision, both in the planning and the execution, to keep the council on track. So I don't see that there's a problem between any of those three objectives. I think that they work very well together. Thank you.
Mr. Block.
Those are very important issues, and without addressing those, we don't have a complete community. People expect when they go to the park or out in their community to have a safe environment, an environment that's clean and free of pollution. They expect when they go visit our downtown that it be a vibrant, exciting place. They expect that any development that takes place has zoning laws in place that protect our communities. It's important to remember one of the reasons why we incorporated was because under King County, we had too many apartment buildings that were going into inappropriate locations. So the citizens came up in arms and decided that they wanted to do something about it. So we joined together as a community and created zoning laws that protect our neighborhoods. And that's an example of how we can't just concentrate on one issue like Arun said. We have to look at all the issues that affect our city because everything is connected. And without having that full approach, we're not going to be able to address the large issues that are facing our city. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. So, in economy, environment, and community development. All those I already offered you in my stump speech at the very beginning, the very first introduction I gave you. When I'm going around, I'm talking to people. I believe that our foundation, like my opponent said, is public safety. We have to get that down first. We have to make sure we can provide for our children. So wrapping what I've already set up with that, by providing for our kids, we are planning for our future. By making sure that we are a safe city, we are making sure community development, people want to move here and live here. By providing a safe city, we are providing for our economy because we appear to be a safer city, which we already are, but we have that negative issue in the news, which I want to work with you to get rid of. So I've already got this down. I've been working hard. I've been learning a lot. Excuse me. So that's why I'm running. I'm running for my kids, I'm running for my family, and I'm running for your family. I know what it takes to do. Mr. Rangel does have some MRSC experience. However, if you've seen some of his letters like he's done before, you will definitely know that the math does not pencil out with what he's given you. He says he's an expert, but the numbers are wrong. Unfortunately, I'll use this right away. So, what I'm talking about, if you look at his math on the annexation, I looked at his math for area X and area Y. If you look at that, then you will see he said $5 million would turn into $200,000 because the math wasn't right. Not so. I used the math for area X, we would have gotten $5,000. The real math was $500,000. I'm just telling you, there's a difference here. He's saying he's an expert. It's not true. His math is off.
Mr. Rangel.
Okay, math is off. My opponent here admitted in the B-Town blog in one of his letters that math is not my strong suit. And trust me, it isn't. Because when he multiplied 0.85%, he forgot to drop 2 additional zeros because it's percent, not 85%. It's 0.85%. And thank you for clearing up my background with commercial bank lending that I don't know how to add.
Jack Main, I believe you have another question. Put it down.
I would like each of you to tell us, would you attempt again to annex White Center?
I think we start with Ms. Berkowitz.
I'm happy to start this. I live 4 houses south of the line that is the north end of North High Line. And I would definitely try to annex the rest of North High Line. Right now, the library is on the other side of that line. We are looking at paying for it and having it move even farther away behind Mount View Elementary. There's a meeting tomorrow night on that. As well as the fact that my community and my neighborhood is completely and arbitrarily split into two. Also, basic principles of union organizing tell that we have power in numbers or we have power in money. Well, Burion's never going to have the most money of any other city in the state compared to the others. So what we have is numbers. And that works both ways. It helps Burien to bring more numbers into our city, and it also helps my neighborhood to be affiliated with Burien and to be part of Burien. Furthermore, aside from just the raw numbers, I can tell you from being in this community for 11 years, walking up and down the streets, both in AmeriCorps and bringing out people to our family literacy nights, as well as over the past several years organizing DSHS social and medical interpreters, and then most recently organizing a fundraiser for a friend with cancer, that there is a lot of passion in North Highline. These are people we want in our city, and the best way to get them into our city is to fight to have them, not fight to keep them away. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jack Block.
You know, in the last election, that brought the issue of annexation up. The citizens of White Center rejected joining Burien at a 2-to-1 margin. The majority of citizens in Burien that I've heard from do not want to annex White Center. You know, it's a nice area. My family's been associated with the White Center area for over 8 years, but it is not appropriate for it to join Burien. White Center has its own identity. It should pursue its own destiny. You know, I think it's patently unfair for King County to try to balance its budget on the backs of Burien citizens by trying to foist off onto Burien, the White Center area. You know, it's interesting to note that right now the county is running a $7 million a year structural deficit serving that area, and if we had annexed that area, we would have inherited a $77 million capital project backlog. You know, this would have been dumped on the citizens of Burien. It's not something that we want. It's not appropriate. King County did not step up with any offers of mitigation. The citizens of White Center obviously do not want to join Burien. They deserve their own destiny. They want their own destiny. Let them pursue it. Thank you.
Joy Martinez.
Thank you. So I've helped out and I've really researched that issue. And I will say this with a yes with an asterisk. First of all, the current deal on the table, unfortunately, was not enough according to the citizens of North Highline. It is much more than just White Center. It is Boulevard Park, Top Hat, all these other neighborhoods as well. So just saying it's White Center is not accurate, unfortunately. However, we do need to, this is a gold mine for the city of Burien and the city of, or for White Center and North Highline as well. However, we do need to get a better deal on the table. I wouldn't bring this up again unless King County were to mitigate some of those issues. Saying it's a $77 million backlog is hyping it up, and it's not really accurate to tell you that way. Might as well be $1 billion backlog if you want to look at it that way. So working with King County, if they can give something on the table that works, something that is pencils out for real, something that the citizens of North Highline can agree to, that I feel it's perfect for the city of Burien. We would be foolish not to annex. Partially also is because it would protect our school district. City of Seattle, if they ever annex that area, allows much higher densities, and who pays for that? Most of the citizens of Seattle would not. It would be the citizens of Highline, or the citizens of Burien, SeaTac, Normandy Park, Des Moines. We would be the ones who pay for those kids that are Seattle kids now. Thank you.
One word answer, no. And a little expansion on that. The people don't want it. I started off my statement saying that the voice of the people is critical. And I absolutely agree. Not only in this city, in the state, as well as in this country. The voice of the people is paramount. We start ignoring what the people want and what the people say. Are we to say we're better than them? We know more about what's good for them. than themselves. Allow them to be the adults that they are. White Center turned it down 2-1. And if the vote was in Burien, it probably get turned down again, 2-1. I am not gonna sit here and say, I know better than the rest of this whole city what's good for you.
I saw a purple card from Ms. Berkowitz.
We did. So I think it's important when we're to remember when we're talking about what the people want, you can't just focus on what the election numbers say, and you actually have to go out and talk to the people. And I actually live in this community and have been out talking to the people for 11 years. So I can tell you that my neighbors want, with few exceptions, of course, you can always find a few, but we want to be part of Burien. And the rest of my neighborhood wants to be part of Burien. The problem is registering voters and getting people involved in their community and showing up to vote. And I think that's a really big problem, obviously, across our country. That is something that I would definitely plan to address as part of making the city a vibrant place. And then you would see very different numbers. And again, you would see that the passion that exists in the areas that people are saying cost too much is really the kind of passion that we want and the kind of community activism that we want in our city. I do agree that the mitigating factors are a problem. Of course, we could make a better deal. That's why you need somebody who has experience negotiating contracts when you're voting for a council person. And that I definitely have a lot of experience doing to get a better deal from the county. Thank you.
Arun Javari has what I think is going to be the final question from the panelists.
Okay, it's very important for a democracy or democratic community like Burien to have the elected officials follow certain basic rules. And one that I'm suggesting is that they should announce early in their election self-imposed term limits. In other words, no city council should be on the council for more than 6 to 8 years or 3 to 4 2-year terms. Why? Because I think we need new blood, we need new ideas. So my question is, what kind of thinking each of these candidates has in terms of self-imposed term limits on the city council?
I believe it's your turn, Mr. Block.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the passion behind term limits, but it's important to remember that we are a democracy. And as a democracy, the power of who serves us is in the hands of the voters. And in order for us to do our job as citizens, we need to engage and do our job, research candidates and vote. And if a candidate doesn't meet the standards that we want, then we vote them out. You know, Alexei de Tocqueville said back at the turn of the 19th century that in a democracy, the people get the government they deserve. And I believe that's very, very true. You know, it's important that we all remain engaged and do our job, undertake our responsibility as citizens, and do the research we need of candidates, and then actively engage and vote. As I said, and Mr. de Tocqueville said, we get the government that we deserve. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. So term limits, things like that, I would be in favor of researching them. I don't agree with them myself personally. I believe if you have someone that you really like and they want to run for office, it should be up to both the candidate and the voters. I can tell you that campaigning is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Being a full-time father, full-time worker, and now a full-time candidate like I have been since April, I can tell you it's definitely really tough. So if that candidate wants to work hard for it, if the citizens want to re-elect him, I definitely say it's up to them. I don't believe we should do any type of term limits. I would be in favor of doing other things, perhaps like public financing to help candidates to do certain things that obviously need study. So public financing, raising money, it's very difficult. You have to talk to a lot of people. There's that perception that maybe a candidate gets bought by somebody. It it's not true, but there's that view. You see that all the time in Congress with all the jokes about congressmen should have their labels on their jacket to see who's purchased them. Oftentimes, they just happen to agree on that issue, but I'm in favor of public options instead of or public financing, among other things like that. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel.
Thank you. Whether or not I will serve 2 terms if elected to the first one, or even the second one, I'm 67 years old. In 8 years, that's going to make me 75 years old. I will be able to outrun most 45-year-olds when I'm 75. I stay in good shape. I am the father of 5 children. I raised 5 children in Burien. We loved it, and we still love it. I will impose a 2-year term or a 2-term election myself, for myself, because there's other things in my life and my wife's life that we want to do. We will contribute to the community. I've been doing that for 37 years. And I will want to help the city now. But beyond that, I have to leave it to someone else. I have to let it go. There are other things in life that are more important. Thank you.
Lauren Berkowitz.
Yes, I think that the question was about self-imposed term limits, not forced term limits. So I think that, many of us, those of us who are lawyers in the room have read the case about Arkansas, and the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional to impose term limits on federal elections. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about self-imposed term limits. Similarly, we're not talking about trying to choose better things for ourselves. It should always be about what the people need. And I think that, yes, I definitely would support self-imposed term limits. You will not see me running for this position once I get elected more than twice. I think it's important to have new blood. This is a constant source of concern within unions for those of us who are union members. Should there be term limits on elected officials or contract negotiators? People get complacent, and it gets easier with name recognition to keep running and keeping the same seat every time. And that means you have less need to talk to the community or whoever you're representing, your constituents. I think those are big problems. The main reason that I'm running is to bring the community back into the council. I don't feel that the community is currently as active in the council as it should be, and I think that term limits would definitely help make it more so. Thank you very much.
At this point, we're going to be taking questions from the audience. I guess the person that you need to get their attention to is that lady there with the microphone. Am I?
I thought that was going to be.
Okay.
There was the first hand I saw it. Or you can call it. I think you better can call it.
Okay. These questions, well, please keep your questions in the form of a question. Keep it relatively short and ask a question that can be addressed to all 4 panelists. Why don't we start with the good-looking guy in the yellow shirt?
My name is Good Space Guy, and I figure that the people who are elected to public office are in charge of the economy. So some of you will become or remain the elected economists of Burien. And so I'm wondering how much economics you've studied. For example, a car repair person studies mechanics, a doctor studies medicine, and the person in charge of the economy studies economics.
And the first person that gets to tackle that question is Joey Martinez. Or I should say tackle the answer.
Keep pulling that out. So I studied basic economy in high school. Took the advanced class, the honors class in high school. I did not follow that into college. I took, first I went into going to be a doctor, but then I changed my mind into computer science. And then I dropped out of that as well and gotten directly into the workforce instead. So some economy in high school. Been learning it ever since. You know, you learn as you watch. You see what does work, what does not work. A lot of the policies that I believe some of my opponents might try are going to be things that we're seeing in the Deep South things that do not agree with Burien, things that do not agree with Washington State. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel.
Okay, I don't know anything about the Deep South policies and economics, but I do know this. I've got a long history of I'm not the economist, this face guy. I'm not the economist. I had in college economics 101, 102, had capital markets, separate class in capital markets, funding. I was a loan officer for Seattle Trust and Savings Bank for 3 years, and I worked as a licensed securities dealers with selling mutual funds and the like. I've got a halfway decent understanding of what the budget system is, and to me that's the key issue here in the city. So where is our tax dollars going to? I want to attack that budget. I want to know where that money is going, and I'm pretty sure I've got a fairly good idea once I get my hands on it what to look for. Thank you.
Lauren Berkowitz, you're on.
I actually have a very strong background in economics. My father has a master's from the University of Chicago School of Economics, and that's the Milton Friedman School. So it might surprise some of you to hear my radical left views coming in and balanced out with economics that are pretty conservative. I think that you have a very good balance, and then I follow that up. I've had, my entire life been filled with economics. Everything is economics to my father, and I've heard it from a very young age. I followed that up by taking AP micro and macroeconomics in high school. In college, I took more micro and macroeconomics as well. And in law school, I have quite a good understanding of zoning laws, property laws, and lots of things that fit into economics, as well as this coming year, I will be taking more specific economics in the law classes. So I have a pretty consistent and in-depth background with various schools of economics and can talk about capitalism all day.
Mr. Jack Block.
Thank you, sir. Like a lot of the people here, I've taken economic classes in college and had my share of book learning on the subject. But I think what's more important is the practical application I've had in applying economic principles. I'm a former officer of ILWU Local 19, and part of that was assessing the business prospects of who we were negotiating with and dealing with those issues as we move forward in negotiations. In order to negotiate a contract and extract a fair family wage in contract negotiations, you have to have a basic understanding of the business that you're negotiating with. So I've spent a lot of time studying the issue, studying business principles, learning as much as possible about business practices, and it's paid off. I'm proud to say that as a longshoreman, we have family wages for all of our members and benefits for all of our members. That's one of the reasons why it's important to study economics, so that we are able to negotiate fair wages and benefits for all of us. Thank you.
I think the lady there, the third, yes, you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Fichamba, and I'm actually a college and career counselor at one of our local high schools. And I've heard, actually, Mr. Block talked about our education system and how we are kind of failing our kids. And I would like to ask each of you what your proposal is and how you're going to partner with our school district in order to ensure our students are graduating on time. And I would like to add that my particular graduating students have been graduating on time, and we've done a lot of great work in our district, but I'd like to know your view and what your partnership is going to be like with our district.
Mr. Rangel, I think this is yours.
Good. Okay, if I'm hearing the question right, how much money does the school district want from the city of Seattle, from the city of Burien? Partnering is a euphemism that we often hear for a lot of different
I'm sorry, I have to
issues.
interrupt you really quick. I'm not asking about money, I'm just asking what you plan to do to partner with the district to ensure that our students are on track for graduation. That has nothing to do with money. To be
Okay,
very
to keep
honest.
this moving slowly, we'll ask the question, they'll answer the question. We get one crack at asking the question, and they have one crack at answering it.
Okay.
If they don't answer your question,
Then I
they,
better understand it.
Okay,
Sorry,
that's
I just
great.
trying to get clarification for you.
No.
I apologize.
Thank you for the clarification. The city of Burien is a city. Its responsibilities are to provide public safety for its people. It's also responsible for providing the work, the roads, the public works. Nowhere in there is there something about the students graduating from high school. That is a function by state law of the school districts. I, myself, and my wife had 5 kids go through private schools. Didn't have any function or any cross-partnershiping with the city of Burien. If you want something done seriously enough and hard enough, you can do it. We sacrificed an awful lot to put our kids through private schools. I saved a lot of money, and I do not drive the most fanciest of cars. That's how we do it.
Ms. Berkowitz?
I believe that the role of the city council is to create a livable and healthy and vibrant city for all of its members, which includes children and includes parents and includes those of us who interact with children and parents, which is all of us. So I have started my time in Burien, again, 11 years ago, volunteering within the school district, Highland Public Schools. And I believe that the solution is getting the communities involved with the schools, especially the public schools. I'm not even talking about the private schools. I think that happens in a kind of program that we ran that connected first graders with high school students at Evergreen, with community partners, and everybody coming together and tutoring kids. And we had high rates of success, because really what it shows is when people care about the kids, they do well. And when people don't care about the kids, they don't do well. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with being separate from anybody else. I've continued my dedication to education by working at Family Works Food Bank and Resource Center up in Wallingford, where I ran a tutoring program that again connected the community, the high school students, and the elementary school students. I also worked with special ed children and behavioral and emotional disabilities. I've spent time in this building meeting on such things, and I believe that this is a vital interest and matter that needs to be addressed by the council. I think it can be addressed by creating a task force. I think it can be addressed by bringing the community back into the council. And I think that it must be addressed in order to make our city a healthy place for everybody.
Mr. Block?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your service as a teacher to our community and to our children. It's probably the most important job we have as a society, and unfortunately, it's underappreciated, so thank you. As I said earlier, education is not somebody else's problem, it's all our problem. You know, there's been talk about that we're all a village and that we have to work as a village to take care of all of our citizens. Well, I think that's an important part of how we address the issue of our education system. You know, it's time that we stop as a community and say, and for basic issues that are affecting us, saying that this is somebody else's problem. It's not somebody else's problem, it's all of our problem. We all have to step up and say, hey, you know, we need to address the fact that our children are struggling right now. You know, in the 2005 Communities Count Survey, Burien had the lowest rate of pre-kindergarten preparedness. In the 2009 survey, Burien had the lowest rate of high school graduation. We are at crisis levels. We need to address this as a community. It's not somebody else's problem, it's all our problem. We have to make sure that our children have the ability to thrive and succeed when they leave our community and go into the adult world. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
Thank you. So this is part of the reason I am running. Both of my boys attend Highline Public Schools. a 13 and 8-year-old. One goes to Pacific, one went to Gregory Heights this last year. So part of the reason I'm running is because I feel the city needs to partner with the school district to provide before and after school activities for the children. A lot of these times, we're not doing this as a city fully. You're seeing that at the library. Some of those kids get in trouble. I need to work with the Highland School District so we can get stuff going at these schools that are sitting empty at night sometimes. We gotta get those full, get those kids active and get them busy, beat the idle hands theory, keep them engaged so that they're not getting in trouble. It's really basic. I also wanna work with you, with the Highland School District. My wife is an employee there, my mother-in-law is an employee there, one of my brothers-in-law is an employee there. So I definitely already understand that partnership is very important to the community. Keeping those kids engaged, there's nothing more important. Keeping them out of trouble, nothing more important. It prepares them for the future. It prepares them to be good citizens. It prepares them to be ready for life. Just because they're a school student does not mean they're not a City of Berrien resident. So I offer that to you, and I wish to work with you to build that better Berrien by focusing on our kids and focusing on public safety. Thank you.
Gentleman in the blue shirt.
I have a little different question. I've been remodeling a house for about 4 years now. I restored one that was foreclosed. And there is an employee in the building department that is outstanding in his job. I'm just wondering, what way will you recognize people who really do a job beyond the normal and take care of the citizens? He's counseled me when I've had him inspect and stuff, and he really helps get things done, and it makes you feel a lot better about the city. I'm not sure, who do you start with as far as the person?
We'll start with Ms. Berkowitz.
One of my favorite things to do, to bring public workers to the front of the residents' for thoughts, because I think that there are actually, it's not just one person who's good. I think there are a lot of good public workers. That's also including the teachers. It includes everybody. And I think that one of the main focuses of the city council needs to be recognizing that our city workers are dedicating lots of their time and hard work for much less pay than the private sector would give them, because they choose to be in Berrien, they choose to be in the public sector. And that's an important sacrifice that they're making, and they're making it because they love the city. So bringing that forward, rather than having this constant negative opinion of public workers that's portrayed in the press everywhere you look. And I say that because I worked at the Washington Federation of State Employees for more than 3 years. So I have seen in every contract negotiation, management actually building this idea that public workers are stealing money, or that they're just horrible people, and all kinds of ridiculous things. And some of that, most people don't believe those things, but some of that mentality sinks into us. So I think it's very important to recognize public workers. And I think you do that by supporting them in their contract negotiations, by supporting them in their drives for better working conditions. I think it's great to see council people out on picket lines and writing letters of support. And I also think it's great to see council people following and practicing what they preach in terms of making sure that we get labor agreements on all of our city projects. Thank you.
Mr. Block.
We have outstanding employees working for our citizens in Berrien. We're very fortunate. I'll give you an example of how our employees got together and saved the citizens a significant amount of money. Our employees were examining their health care package and found out that by participating in the Association of Washington Cities Well City program, that they could save 2% on the city's premiums for its health care. That saved over $50,000 a year for the citizens of Berrien. They did this voluntarily. That's a great example of the dedication that our city employees have to the citizens of Berrien. They know that we run a tight ship, but we've also recognized the hard work and sacrifices of our employees. That's why during the recent economic slowdown, we didn't lay off any of our employees. Last year, I'm proud to say I pushed for a pay raise, to recognize how hard our employees are working and the contributions that they have given to our citizens. It's important to recognize that without our employees, we don't have a city. They're the people that we hire to provide the services that the citizens want. So anyway, I'm grateful, and I want to thank you very much for bringing that question up.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. So first of all, it's real easy to demonize public workers, that they're stealing or they're lazy, and we've all heard this time and time again. And I can tell you, and I'm sure my opponent will agree, I'm a current City of Seattle employee, and I've heard you used to work there. So we can tell you that it's simply not true. Public workers, whether it's a boom economy or a bust economy, we pretty much make the same amount of money. And all we want, honestly, is to not be stepped on by a city council. We've got a job to do, and we appreciate, I know I do, I don't really go to work to do my job to get awards, but it is nice to get an attaboy from somebody every once in a while. And I definitely understand that, and I can relate with that. And I would definitely try and find some award system that is within the public law that's allowed, because you can't give bonuses, you can't give time off or anything like that. You can't even really give food, unfortunately. So I would find some way to do it. Very important to me. Let's thank the people that work hard. They're not making a lot of money, even though they're shown that they've got these Cadillac benefits, which isn't really, not that, they're good, but the private sector, you could do a lot better. Thank you.
Chuck Rangel.
Thank you. One of the things that's often left out is what that gentleman just said. Oftentimes, private or public sector, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes, the boss, the owner, the director, whatever, never hears from someone who got good service. That's unfortunate. That is very unfortunate. It would be so nice if more people would actually thank them, but also send a letter to the boss, to the upper, in this case, to the mayor or to the city manager. That it's great to hear that. And as far as no awards in the public sector, if I was a city manager, my employee got a letter like that, I'm taking him to lunch on my dime. There's nothing wrong with that. You do a good job and the citizens are happy, that's good. The reward of going to lunch, that's good.
Another question. You had your hand up first.
My name is Roger DeLorme, and I have a
Let's
question.
use the microphone.
Oh, my name is Roger DeLorme. I have a question on the city's budget. Currently, we had to go into reserves to balance the budget. What would the candidates do to balance the budget and not have to go into various reserves and keep depleting them?
Thank you. And Mr. Block, you get the first step to answer that question.
Well, I'm very proud to say that at our last budget hearings, when the city manager proposed a tax increase, I said no. You know, we had a budget surplus, a reserve that was in excess of what was necessary to provide services to our citizens. So I felt it was prudent to tap that reserve rather than increase taxes to our citizens. It's important to realize that this is not our money, it's the citizens' money. And we have to spend it prudently without having the time or recognition of, I already said here, it's been a long day. We need to recognize that it's the citizens' money and that we have to spend it prudently. You know, Harry Bridges once said, as far as strike funds, that the best place for a strike fund was in the members' pockets. Well, I feel the same way about the citizens' dollars. You know, the best place for a reserve is in the citizens' pockets. You know, there's no reason to raise taxes if we don't have to. We had an opportunity, rather than raise taxes, to go into our reserves and recognize the fact that we're in an economically difficult time, and that we have to recognize that our citizens need relief and an opportunity to be able to grow economically. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
So this is a tough question without getting too wonky. The city, first of all, I believe that the reserves have been repaid, if I remember correctly. So we are no longer in the red, so to speak, which we never are by going into the reserves, but I understand the question. So in order to, so what I can tell you as a city employee myself of the city of Seattle, we have been cutting since 2007 at least. We have found ways to make things more affordable, all kinds of different ways. It's a really, pardon me. So short of raising taxes, there are plenty of things we can do as a city, which we have been doing. It's easy to blame the city that, oh, they're just spending too much money, they're wasting money, but it's, I'm blowing this question and I admit it. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel?
Okay, balancing the budget. It's in a way as simple as what you do with your wallet. Realistically, folks, when my wife and I were putting 5 kids through private schools, we weren't making a ton of money. We did a lot of things on the cheap. We realized, okay, we won't go out to the theater once a week or even once a month. What are the choices we have? When we get this budget for the city of Burien, we will have to say, what are the choices we have? We know we have to provide for the public safety, because we're all dead if we don't. So what we're looking at then is, what are the choices? A lot of every one of you out there, I wish we had more input from citizens, because I know I'm not the only one around who's had to balance their budget at home. It's not easy, but you make tough choices. The City of Burien Council will have to make tough choices.
Ms. Berkowitz?
Sure. I think that this is also, it could be looked at as something that's difficult, or it could be looked at as an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity for collaboration in funding sources. So it's not a given that the amount, that the size of the pie, if you will, is the size that it has to be. We can increase it by working with community groups to bring in more money to the city. So for example, people keep asking me when I'm out talking to the community, oh yeah, I want sidewalks, well how are we gonna get it? Well, we can build coalitions with environmental groups to write grants and get outside funding. There are lots of different ways to receive funding, and it comes down to balancing our priorities and our values, and making sure that the people that you elect to the council represent the priorities and the values of the citizens of the city. So that it's not about cutting money here and there, and it's certainly not like balancing your wallet and your own personal budget, because basic economics tells you that in the city and public funds are the exact opposite of private funds. So I think that, again, it comes down to being collaborative and being creative in terms of ways that we can create more funding for the city. And I believe that we have the power to do so, and I believe our citizens have the power to do so, and that it's a matter of bringing us together to create those funding, those priorities and values that represent the people. Thank you.
I'm going to take time for one more question, and I know I hate having to pick out which one I'm going to answer, but I'm going to pick the guy that's closest to me, because he looks like he could be mean if I ignore him. Go ahead, sir.
Well, in addition to the last question.
Wait for the microphone. Thank you.
As an addition to the last question, if each of you had the responsibility, direct responsibility, what would you do specifically to fill all those vacant storefronts that we find on 1st, 153rd, and 152nd Street right now?
I think it's Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. So, filling the empty storefronts, the city can only do so much. Other people own them, and first of all, they have to become reasonable. If you look at the empty storefronts on 152nd at the new condos, if you look at the numbers that they want for that store frontage, it is ridiculous. It's cheaper to go to 153rd or elsewhere. So it has to start with the owners of that city or that property. As a city, it's really a tough balance. If you give away too much in tax incentives, then you're not going to be able to pay for the services that are needed. You can bring in you have to find the right types of businesses. And I've been speaking with the economic developer of Burien, getting a lot of ideas. He's the expert, and I've been listening to him. He's got a lot of great ideas. They go along with the NERA, they go along with First Avenue redevelopment, things like that. So, excuse me. So definitely listening to the experts. You can't give away too much in tax revenue. There isn't much to give away right now with an empty storefront. Bringing in those businesses is vitally important, but there's only so much the city can do. We have to have a safe environment. We need to look good for our kids. We need to say, hey, we're doing everything we can for our school district, and that attracts people. We need to say, hey, we are a safe community, and that's something I offer as a candidate. Thank you.
Mr. Rangel, you're up.
Okay, one of the things that I've noticed about Burien in the past is sometimes they make too many demands on people who want to come into Burien to have a business, such as Home Depot. Home Depot would have been a godsend to this community in terms of jobs and in terms of sales tax dollars. But the city made too many demands. One of the things we can do as a new city council is to change our attitude toward the businesses. Talk to them, find out what they really want. The auto dealers up and down First Avenue the same way, we're going to be moved, and they say, wait a minute. All of a sudden, they're at the city council meetings, angry. But you got to listen to them. You got to listen to the citizens. The experts, yes, they are the experts in business. We'll talk to them. We'll develop tax policies. We'll develop structural changes, and we'll develop incentives even to bring the business here. And with all of that business succeeding, the sales tax revenues should go up. Thank you.
Ms. Berkowitz, you're on.
Thanks. I think it's dangerous to consider an immediacy question without first consulting our vision for a long-term future of Burien. So I think that it's important to create a race to the top mentality. I think that starts with making a place that's inviting for businesses, that has a vibrant city, that has its citizens actually walking around so that they want to go to a restaurant or to a storefront. And right now we don't have that. It's not even safe to walk down many of our streets. So I think it comes back to, again, creating a very livable city that then entices people to bring their businesses to the city, which then further creates a spiral up of people wanting to come, and then higher property values, which results in more revenue for the city, and it's a much better start than just going very quickly and bringing in the first business that really wants to be here and bring down the family wages and ruin the city instead. I think it's important to have a vision and stick with it. Thank you.
Mr. Block, you get the final say on this question.
Thanks. I think it's important to attract the right kind of businesses. You know, the last thing Burien needs is a Walmart, big box retail store. You know, we have a thriving community of businesses that have been in here in Burien for generations. And I remember growing up seeing our downtown core filled. Unfortunately now, a lot of those businesses have moved on, and we haven't done enough to attract new businesses. You know, it's important that we as a community make this a major focus because it adds to the livability of our city and also affects the revenue that we're able to receive to provide services. You know, we need to find our niche as far as what we are as a city and where our economic future is going. You know, we need to capitalize on the restaurants that have developed in downtown Burien. Utilize our other assets like the Performing Arts Center to draw people from outside of Burien into our city so that they can enjoy the fine establishments that we have, spend money here and help economic growth. We need to focus instead of trying to attract the same businesses that every other city is trying to attract. Instead, focus on niche small businesses like the train stop on 152nd, businesses that have a regional presence that attract people from outside the area. Those are the things we need to do so that we can grow and thrive economically and rebuild our downtown core. Thank you.
At this time, we'll have closing comments from each of our candidates. We started at the south end of the table for opening, and we're going to start at the north end, at least if I got my directions right, for the closing. So, Mr. Rangel, you're up. 90 seconds.
Thank you. Again, my name is Chuck Rangel. I'm running for City Council position number 7. Some 37 years ago, plus, my wife and I moved from Chicago to the Seattle area. And we're looking for a place to live. After some study, we looked at Burien and found it was the perfect place for what we wanted. We wanted a place that we could raise our children. And it has wonderful parks. At that time, it had a wonderful business core. I still believe Burien can have all of that again for any of the younger families who want to raise their families here. In my 37 years of being in this community, I was president of the Burien JCs. I was a coach for the American Legion baseball team. That was the most fun of anything I've done. I was the treasurer for the Burien Little Theater, and I'm the current adjutant for the Burien American Legion. Served proudly in the U.S. Army, not no Hispanic American Army, the U.S. of Army. I bleed red, white, and blue. I have many years of experience in organizational and financial matters in both public and the private sector, from federal, city, state, and in the commercial banks as well. Governing a city requires at least that much ability to do. If elected, I will listen to the citizens' input and concerns. I would appreciate your vote.
Your closing comments.
My name is Joey Martinez, and I'm running for Burien City Council, seat 7. Like I've said earlier, I'm running for my kids. I'm running to make Burien a safer place. Some of the stuff I offer to the city is very unique in my race. I don't feel anyone else can offer it. I have been endorsed by the Washington Conservation Voters. That might be important to some of you if you're interested in the Westmark issue. I have been endorsed by the 33rd District Democrats, 34th District Democrats, King County Democrats, the Machinist Union, and Friendly to Labor, Martin Luther King County Jr. County Council. I have been endorsed by Burien's firefighters. I have talked to these people. They agree with my values. They agree with your values, many of you. I'm also running because I really love Burien. I'm only 34 years old, so even if I was born here, I couldn't match my opponent here. So my wife was born here. My kids are born here. I plan on living my days in Burien. So some of the stuff you've heard tonight is kind of like driving a car. We've told you, all right, we're in this car, our seat belts are on, gas gauge is set, the mirrors are nice and right. One thing you have not heard from here, from my opponent, that you have heard from me, is that I am the one looking down the road. I'm looking down the road, I'm telling you, I can help us find the right way. That's one of the differences I offer. Thank you very much. Joey Martinez for Burien City Council, seat 7.
Ms. Berkowitz.
How can you miss me? Boy, that's the first time that's ever happened. This diet is working well.
You know, there's a lot of pressure to this job.
Yeah, I
Go
can
ahead.
understand that. Well,
You just have to answer questions. I have to actually keep track of who's who.
oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm proud to say I'm a third generation of my family to live in the Burien area. When I was 13 years old, I used to deliver the Highline Times to the businesses in downtown Burien. I remember when our downtown core was a thriving, vibrant area. It's time to return that to our city. We have to recognize that right now people don't feel safe in their homes or on the streets. People have a right to feel safe on the streets and in their homes. We have to put more cops on the street. People are asking for it. We need to have attention to detail. You know, I'm a blue collar worker. I know how hard it is to make a buck. That's why I treat every taxpayer dollar as if it was my own. You know, it's attention to detail. That's why you'll see me in front of the council talking about small items. Well, in the context of our budget, they're small items, but I'm talking $50,000 and $100,000. You know, that's a lot of money from where I come from, and I think that's a lot of money for you. And most importantly, it's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money, and it's important that we recognize that. Attention to detail. You know, Burien's been driven off the rails, and it's time to put Berrien back on track. We need to, thank you.
Now, Ms. Berkowitz.
Thank you. I think that Berrien needs new leadership, new ideas, and most importantly, new energy. And I bring all three of those things to the table. I'm looking for getting the community back involved into the council, which I think has been sorely missing. If you go to city council meetings, you will not see very many people there. You might even see people asleep. I think it's a really good idea to actually encourage the people who live in the city to come to the council meetings. And there's nobody better than a union organizer who knows how to do that. I think that I can tell you from talking to people in my community and knocking on doors, talking to people, as well as from living in this community and working in this community for 11 years, I think that we need some serious walkability infrastructure. We need to start at the bottom with these base services that cities are supposed to provide for their citizens and make it a better place for everybody within a vision that is actually a long-term vision. We need to make sure that we have family wage jobs. We need to make sure that we get the right kinds of businesses brought into the city. And we need to, that in turn will make it a safer community. I think all these things can be done with a collaborative and creative approach to the city, which can be done by bringing some new people into the city and incorporating more of the city into the council. So I look forward to representing you and the rest of our city instead of just little areas of the city, little pockets of the city, starting this fall, and I look for your vote. Again, Lauren Berkowitz for Berrien City Council, Position 1. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have some people that I would like to thank. I'd like to thank Mark Newman for all the work he did.
Remember, next week, Rachel, tonight, it's round 2, seats 3 and 5. So I hope you can all be here for your friends. Pardon?
And Steve Armstrong, seat number 7.
And that's correct. Steve will be here. And we also have some fine biscotti over here, some really good bananas. Take them home, and thank you very much.
I would also like to thank Jack and Maroon. And Ms. Berkowitz, Mr. Block, Mr. Martinez, and Mr. Rangel, I would like to thank you for being here, and I apologize for all the times that I butchered your name. But most of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. To those who had questions, I didn't get time to get around to you, I apologize. That's just the way it goes, that's part of life. From here, you need to drive home carefully.